city of Vero Beach. So, assuming this only people in the city limits would have this tax, if it fully gets approved. It's a stormwater tax. So what they're trying to do is based on heavy rain, when we get that here in Florida, unlike right now, things will not always be absorbed through the soil. So it'll come off roofs, go into streets, go off sidewalks, into ditches and canals. And then once that runs off into lagoon, it will grab along the way chemicals, debris, so physical debris,
pesticides,
oil,
and
pesticides, just
and stuff.
nutrients in general that will kind of throw the water out of whack over time. If that's correct, Chris?
Right. Yeah, and it just makes its way into, drainage ditches and stuff, and then works, eventually works its way into the lagoon to some extent. Although, probably most of the heavy stuff just stays in those ditches and just sits in the bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a little background. So, Chris, although being homeless, he actually has a degree in geotechnical engineering.
Just civil engineering.
Civil engineering, yeah.
Geotech, yeah.
Yeah, and he works doing geotech, even though he's unemployed and homeless.
Yeah.
So
It does it on the side.
Yeah, he'll have some good.
That's how bad the job market is right now. They'll take anybody.
Oh shit!
He does a good job. He just smells a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the obvious things that are gonna happen probably immediately is homeowners are gonna start building impervious driveways. So they're gonna build driveways out of gravel, or they're gonna use impervious asphalt, which is
We'll explain impervious real fast. So basic
materials that let water flow through it.
Okay.
So
Not
now,
just concrete.
if you have an asphalt
yeah.
driveway or a concrete driveway, you're going to get taxed for that square footage of that surface. That
So you
you're
already
covering.
get taxed for that.
Yeah, no.
According
Under
to
this stormwater tax,
Okay,
you would you'd be taxed for any roof area and also any impervious pavement.
Okay.
Which is traditional asphalt and concrete.
Okay.
So anyone that has that type of asphalt as a driveway, you're going to be taxed on that. But so that's basically what's going to happen is people are going to start building driveways out of material that's pervious, and so that's going to be one of the effects of that law.
Right.
So this is obviously this tax. Jump back to that real fast. Is a way for the city to try to help clean up the lagoon. That's been a hot topic in Florida in general, especially South Florida, for the past 5 years or so.
Good
Algae
topic
blooms.
for it to be a hot topic. I think. I mean, I think
agree.
it's a good.
It's
a good fight.
It's a good fight. So obviously in this discussion, we're going to try and figure out, one, is it necessary to make its own tax?
Right.
Is the tax worth it? And how helpful would this tax be, I guess?
Right.
So my concern immediately is, especially after this last year, I mean, local businesses have had such a hard time staying open, for one, and two, it's they've had to sustain the drastic decrease in business just because of the pandemic. I feel like this is, just another kind of stitch in the side of local businesses that have already had to deal with so much. You know what I mean?
Correct. And that's actually, so when they had the people draw up the tax and kind of give this is what would happen, it's going to bring in about, at full effect, a little over $1 million a year.
1.8, I think they said.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and 2/3 of that is going to come from businesses and big private organizations.
And the rest, I'm assuming, from
just the houses.
Yeah,
and
right, housing.
city limits.
And it's going to be businesses because they have the most concrete.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Pretty much.
But
parking lots and shit.
Yeah, I mean those big just outside. Well, I don't know if that's technically Vero. I know Walgreens has a big distribution center here.
Pretty sure that's
Vero.
still considered.
So
Vero.
I wonder, that's the type of business that's going to get hit the hardest is those, distribution facilities. It's all asphalt and massive warehouse buildings and
huge
things
square
like that.
footage of the roof.
Yeah,
yeah,
but taxable.
But it's only within city limits.
Correct. I think it's only they can only control what's in city limits.
Yeah, so I think the Walgreens would fall outside of that.
But
yeah,
but still, Walmart was within city limits, I believe. At least the neighborhood store. But they have brought that up, obviously, right? So we'll give some credit. Obviously, we're liberty-minded, so anytime a new tax comes up, we're like, all right, you bunch of dicks.
Fuck
Yeah,
that.
we're
Yeah.
very-
Right.
against
So
it.
our mayor, to give him credit, does not want this to go through.
Hmm.
I think in general, but particularly in this time right now, because he has brought up the whole pandemic thing.
Yeah.
You know, business can't deal with it. So as of right now, I think the discussion is if it does go through, it's going to either be at 25% or 35%
To begin with,
the
and then
first
it's
year,
going to, yeah.
then go in full effect.
Okay.
So
35% of the proposed tax
Yeah.
initially, and then it'll
Yeah.
increase.
which is nice, but you're still getting taxed. So
Yeah, it's like,
It
oh.
seems to be a convenient way to ease things.
correct.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a very convenient way
Exactly.
they do that.
It's right.
You don't notice it too much
What
the first couple
like
years.
what is the actual numbers? Do we know them?
What numbers?
Like I guess it's all depends on how much concrete and how much.
yeah,
Right.
they have like a
They have an
calculation, right?
estimate up. I'm pretty sure the estimate was 1.8 million per year of revenue would come from this.
They said somewhere around a 2,500 square foot house would be like $80 a year for a tax.
Yeah.
But like anything, so the way I looked at this and I kind of looked into it more was from a budget standpoint. So obviously Vero Beach already has a budget that they divvy up things for stormwater prevention and to enhance things. A lot of it does go to just upkeep currently, but they have been making ways and improving things over time in the last couple of years. But I'm trying to think here. The thing with the budget right now is because it comes from general funds currently is something about mileage from the taxes, and it becomes a lot more transparent on what they're doing with that money because it's general funds.
Right.
So once they turn it into a new tax category, one, it's its own tax, so they can raise it independently from the current way they get it, just again, general funds, which is property taxes typically.
Mm-hmm.
So now that they can increase it really every year by little, that's just something that's going to be added more. Whereas you think about it, if it's property taxes, you raise people property taxes, they're already going to freaking yell at you
Yeah.
and get angry. So this is kind of like, in my view, a way to kind of not hide, but kind of slip it in easy.
Yeah.
And then over time, it can increase.
Ooh,
Yeah.
slip it in easy.
Yeah. I don't know. So that's kind of interesting. And then already, coming from general funds, two of our... Let me try to look what I written down here.
It's pretty considerate of them to slip it in easy, though.
Yeah,
Normally
I mean,
it's-
obviously, right?
Just nice and slow.
Damn, what was that?
So, two
asshole.
of
Sounds like
our...
that thing just fucking blew up driving past your house. Holy Christ.
two of the city... what do you call them? Engineering? What's the engineering part of the city?
The Public Works.
Public Works,
Department?
correct. Yeah, so Public Works Department for engineering and for streets already has stormwater upkeep and increase, so like increase the efficiency and work ways around to increase the benefit of the lagoon. It's already in two of our Public Works areas for the mission and goals for our budget.
Right, so it's something that we're already allocating money towards.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, in this area, the stormwater is one of the top concerns, you know, for from an engineering standpoint, for sure, because we're pretty much every house is within 5 to 6 feet of the groundwater table,
Right.
so it doesn't take much for a massive storm to just flood areas, but which is why so many houses are built so high around here. But yeah, and I just think one of the main things that I think of with like one of these blanket taxes is that everybody, they're doing this on a square footage basis, and I don't think that necessarily corresponds to impact on the lagoon, which is what they're using as their
argument.
emphasis for why this tax is necessary. There's plenty of people in Vero who live on large acreage properties that have their own retention ponds that handle stormwater drainage, and so it's not fair for people who are required to have retention areas on their property to deal with the stormwater to also have to pay
Right, because
for
they've paid
this
for
tax
that.
on top of it.
Right.
Whenever they're not contributing much to that the lagoon effect that they're using as a reasoning for
Yeah.
this tax.
Right. Yeah, well, you guys aren't in city limits, right?
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is like
Yeah.
most of those people probably aren't going to get affected by the tax because
That's true.
people who
yeah.
have. I mean, I know your point is valid for sure,
Mhm.
but I mean, if you're in that situation, but most of the people are going to be the people closest, probably to the river,
Would
and
make
probably
sense.
within city limits.
Which is
Right.
where the much like largest effects is happening.
Right.
And
I know that
most of those the people living right on the river, like they're close quarters and stuff. There's nowhere to put that stormwater, so they're
Right.
draining straight out.
And
to the road
I know they
and to
have
the-
like certain regulations, like when they can do like fertilizer and stuff. They can't,
Mhm.
they have like a
Certain times of the
they have-
year.
Yep. Excuse me. Yeah, exactly. And things like of that nature, where they kind of already have done some regulatory stuff on that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then also, talking earlier before we started the podcast, Chris, you talked about how most big establishments around here, especially in city limits, they're already required, correct, to make it retention ponds, depending on how big their lot is.
Yeah, well, that's for and I guess this only applies for stuff east of 66 because that would be within city limits. And there are properties in that area where they do that sort of thing where if your property's I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but if your property is a certain acreage, your people will use the fill from a retention pond to build their house pad, as long as the fill's suitable to do that. And there's regulations for how much retention you're supposed to have on your property and things like that. So they're upfront whenever they're building a house. They're paying for the cost of creating retention on their property.
Right.
So it's
like a hidden tax.
it
Well,
just
it's still
seems like
legitimate.
people who go through the trouble to do something like that. It seems like they're
Should
not
have some sort
they're
of
not doing
exemption.
much of an impact on
Yeah.
the stormwater.
Right.
And then just in general too. I mean, grew up here my whole life. So obviously there's a couple things you can do for stormwater. You'd probably know this better than me, but it's like dry retention, wet retention.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of properties around here have swales.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, Cameron has a swale right there,
Yeah.
if I'm correct.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
baffle boxes.
Mhm.
I think are one. I think the city only has about one. I think maybe one or two.
Yeah. I'm not sure about
But I mean, there's like swales almost on every lot.
that. Mm-hmm.
I would say at least 80%, and
Right.
then there's a good amount of wet retention and dry retention around. So it's
Yeah,
not
that's
like
retention in itself, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not leaving. The whole idea is to keep it on your property to let it.
Yeah, and those swales
Absorb down.
aren't. They're not like diverting drainage to somewhere else. For the most part, they're just diverting the drainage that would be flooding your lot into a lower elevation area so that it can sit there and infiltrate into the soil instead of sitting in your lawn and infiltrating into the soil.
Right. It
So
just
that's
moves
the
it.
point of that. It's not like that stormwater is being diverted into like the massive 10-foot ditch across the road
Right.
over here. I'm sure that's the case in some areas.
yeah, I'm sure some people have
Mhm.
done some stuff for that, but I think it's safe to say that in general, the city, for how fast, quote unquote fast it's grown, I think has done a pretty good job with keeping things, to the best they could,
Mhm.
with the minimal amount of impact on people's liberty. I would say,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we have a pretty
yeah. So I mean,
good area in regards to.
I don't know. So it's just hard with this tax to kind of figure out what drastically is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think already, based on the budget, they take 600 to 700,000 out for stormwater. So if we're going to I think it's 1.2 maybe, or maybe 1.8. It's not like a humongous. I mean, it's obviously still a big jump, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's like what
But $1 million for an entire city, that's really, like you said, it's not like
yeah.
Yeah, that's
crazy
like
expensive.
you can
Is it worth
probably
it adding on this new tax?
redo a
Right.
few roads
Yeah.
with better drainage facilities, but
Correct.
per year. Yeah, no, it would take a while to actually, see some effects of that funding. I feel like, so I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I tried to look into some studies of some of these rain taxes that are popping up around the country. They've been, I think it started in Washington State, was the first state to implement this. And when I lived in Maryland, it was actually one of the first states to implement it. I think they might have been the second behind Washington. But yeah, it's, that's what it is. It's essentially a rain tax. You're taxed for the amount of rain that falls on your house.
Are you saying the
which is bizarre because how the fuck you have no control over that.
Are you saying the more money you give government to fix things don't get done?
Right. Well, it also,
Do you just speak Yoda?
I think so.
Things don't get done.
Yeah.
No, so I just want to understand what you said earlier clearly, but it's like the way they're implementing this tax, when it comes in, it's not like publicly disclosed how they use it. Is that what you said?
I think it has to be publicly disclosed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a quote, I might have it here, but there's a quote by the mayor where he does not like this, right? Mainly because he wants the city council to find intuitive ways to do this
Without taxing the people.
without adding a new tax because
it's a separate tax.
Correct.
And so this
can be less transparent. He didn't go on
They
to
don't
why.
need to justify the whole general fund why they need the extra money. They just need to take this one tax and justify some sort of increase, and
More
they can
likely.
do that little by little every year without actually. Which I'm not sure how it works. I'm guessing they vote on the general fund
I would assume.
every year. So
Yeah.
so that's something that is probably a big deal, and they have to vote on that every year. And then you're creating a whole separate tax where they can just kind of do it with it as they please compared to what you have in a big general fund that everyone's paying attention to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I see what you mean. It's an entirely separate deal. So, like you
Right.
said, they can kind of adjust it and do whatever
Yeah.
they want with it.
So we'll still see what's going on, but again, what's your average person looking at what's going on out even within the general fund,
Yeah.
So it's just another layer people have to kind of look into to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Which may be more of what he was trying to say too, along with
Yeah.
what Chris said.
That seems like a reasonable argument against it, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see from just the public's standpoint whether they would be in favor of this, because I haven't heard anybody that I know talk about this. Right?
I would assume businesses hate it
well, you
because
would
they're going to
think,
get hit
right?
hard
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to hit the hardest.
and
Yeah.
within city limits.
And I mean going back to the obvious solutions with the pervious materials for pavements and stuff, the reality of that is those materials are not as durable as asphalt and concrete. Like your pervious asphalt is not as durable as a impervious asphalt
Right.
because it has all sorts of voids through it, and so yeah.
and I'd be interested to see what.
And there's plenty of studies for that, asphalt versus pervious asphalt. Some areas they've decided that it's worth it, and they can, repair it every 10 years or so.
Right.
I know up north they have some serious problems with it because snowplows just tear this stuff up.
Yeah.
Just rip it right
I can
off.
see that.
And you wonder too, so say a company, say it does persuade a company to not use asphalt or whatever, right? And so then it does take on water, and so leads to less water being run off into the lagoon, right? And so right away it is a positive effect on the lagoon, right? That's kind of the idea of the tax. But like you said, in a lot of situations, people aren't going to do that because probably overall it's going to cost them more money to continue changing things and repairing the
Right, yeah.
like you said. So how does it really affect the lagoon? As somebody who spends a lot of time in the lagoon, like a lot more than probably most people, I love being out there. I love fishing. That's my thing,
Yep.
So how do they take this money and make a real difference in the lagoon?
Yeah, that's my question too. Is what are they
See a
planning on
plan
using
of
it
the actual
for?
use, right, of the money. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that.
Yeah, and I think they do, and I think it involves baffle boxes.
Okay.
I think.
They're going to build a shit ton of baffle boxes.
Yeah.
So explain.
I don't
what
know
that
a
is.
lot about those, honestly.
Yeah, so
wish
I just
knew more
know
about those.
this is what that video we kind of watched. So it's this like sequence that water will go through, where it has certain stages, and each stage needs a certain amount of water for the water to fill over into.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is the water will sit in one stage, sediment and particles will fall
To the bottom.
to the bottom. The physical things that will float will obviously still stay floated. So the baffle boxes will have catchers up top. So when the water rises and it moves over, physical things get caught.
Oh, yeah, wow. I have a picture up here. This is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, they are really interesting.
It's like a natural filtration
Yeah.
device,
Yeah.
pretty much.
And they've made, I guess, improvements within however many decades that now it can get like chemicals out, sort of. So I would assume that's like their big thing to work on. But I was digging through a little bit too of the city because obviously stormwater has been a thing for a while now. In 2018, they put out a summary for their stormwater. Let me see here, some data, and
Give us the numbers.
at that time in 2018, 34% of the city urban area has some form of stormwater treatment. They didn't go into detail of what that was. Either it's like a swale or some type of holding area for the water, but it's 34% of the city. It would take $2.3 million to bring city to 53% stormwater treatment, and another $1.1 million to 64%. So that's what, a little over $3.4 million?
Mm-hmm.
And then it said that 36% of the city is either low priority or it would have negligible effect if they did stormwater treatment to the areas.
Yeah.
So that's their own,
study.
yeah, whoever did that, stating that it would take $3.4 million to at least get 64% of the city to have some type of treatment.
And still, even at that point, they seen negligible effects to the...
Well, no, they would just once you get to 64% of the city
So-
having treatment.
So based on that, in 3 years of having this tax, we could have everything up to par, and then we could just do away with the tax, right?
Based on that, yeah, right?
Yeah, that's not
Are they gonna
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
Will be a revolving tax. I'll turn on every 3 years.
Don't move the goalposts and find
Right.
a new justification to...
And there's again, stormwater has been a thing for a while now. So the state level's gone onto it too, where they've put out their own, people have made numbers that cities have to meet by certain years. And I believe Vero Beach has met the 2025 already for certain chemical levels within their area of the lagoon. And we're already on the way to make for the 2030 levels too. So we're not like
way ahead of the
slacking in
game.
a sense. Obviously, we're not saying that the lagoon is pristine and beautiful
Definitely not.
to what it could be, but it's not like we're, holding down the ball. We're not like
Right, we're not one of the counties or cities that are really,
correct.
So
So again, it comes back to this whole discussion of like, all right, great. I think everybody wants to see the lagoon get cleaner. It's an unfortunate circumstance of a growing society that's close to the water, but is this new tax really going to benefit us?
Yeah, one of my main concerns is just like the last of these few big businesses that exist in Indian River County just like leaving. Because what's it to them to just move over to Brevard County and, because I mean, I guess they could just leave the city of Vero Beach, but, they've been, I feel like a lot of these big cities have been run out of the county in the past few years, or these big businesses have been run out of the county, and, they just see it coming, and when something like this goes through, it just signals to them, hey, you should probably
time.
just get out of here.
Yeah,
Right. It's time
That's
to
a good
start
point.
thinking about moving.
Yeah.
Nice. But just to circle it back, so stormwater tax, more than likely going to be implemented. It looks like it's going to be implemented at a lower rate for the first year, maybe 25 or 35%. And then after the first year, it goes into full effect. Again, it's just for the people in the city limits, businesses as well. It's going to rake in around 1.2 to 1.8 million per year. Businesses will take 2/3 of the blunt of that checkaroonie.
And yeah, I think that's definitely going to be the biggest impact. It's
Yeah.
going to be businesses getting shafted by this. They're going to move out of town.
Yeah.
At best case scenario, they're going to move out of the city limits. Worst case, they're going to move to a totally different county.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I mean, obviously, I would say, want the lagoon to be a better place. I mean, me personally, I just think this is a complete wrong way to go about it. It seems, based on the city's own information, they've been doing a pretty good job with the resources they have.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, nothing can be as fast as we want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Especially with science.
Yeah. I would always like to see the city work within its own funds it has currently